This is the PuckiPuppy Bulldog, by far the biggest and craziest bike I've ever tested on this channel. What makes this bike so crazy is its 2 batteries, giving it up to 130 miles of range. That's right, 2 batteries. There's a battery in the top tube right here, and then another one in the down tube down here. Each battery is 48 volt, 15 amp hours, giving you a total of 30 amp hours. Now both of the batteries are UL 2271 compliant, and they can be charged both on the bike and off the bike. An interesting discovery is to charge the batteries, you need to charge each of them independently. You can't just plug in the bike and charge both batteries. You can charge the lower battery here, and then on the back side there's a port for the upper battery. You can also remove the batteries and charge them, but still, you need 2 chargers to charge simultaneously. And PuckiPuppy only provided 1. Along with the 2 batteries that you have to charge independently, they also come with 2 sets of keys. I really wish they had keyed them the same. These keys are separate and not interchangeable. So now you have to keep track of which key is for the top battery and which key is for the lower battery. I really wish I could use just 1 key for both. One other thing worth noting about the 2 battery setup is you can't run the bike with just 1. You can't remove a battery and still use the bike. Now you can run the bike with 1 battery charged and the other one dead. That works fine. It just has to be mounted in the bike. Honestly, it's a little odd calling this a bulldog. Seems its spirit animal is a little more St. Bernard based on its size and weight. All it's missing is a keg of whiskey hanging from its neck. I mean, handlebars. The Bulldog is powered by a 750 watt PuckiPuppy-branded hub motor capable of peak wattage of 1350 watts and up to 120 Newton meters of torque. So pretty much, it can go up and over anything. So what is a PuckiPuppy anyway? It's the strangest name for a company. Typically you find this kind of creative naming coming from companies out of China, but they're based out of California. Turns out, the founder of the company really loves dogs, and he wanted the company name to be dog related. Hence, PuckiPuppy. Not quite sure how he landed on PuckiPuppy, but there it is. And as a result, all the models are named after dogs. This is the Bulldog, they have the Labrador, many others. Like all of PuckiPuppy's bikes, the Bulldog features 26 by 4-inch tires. These bad boys can roll over almost anything and give you incredible stability while riding. They also make it really comfortable to ride. In addition to those tires, this is full suspension. So you have 130 millimeters of travel up front, and I'm not sure exactly how much travel in the back. Yeah, I have no idea how much travel that is. On the suspension fork, there's a dial on the left side. This allows you to adjust the firmness of the suspension for your ride preference and your body weight. And on the right, there is a fork lockout. You can lock out the fork if you want. It's an on-off switch, so there's no adjustability between fully locked out and fully engaged. But if you want to lock it out, you can. On this bike, I didn't really see a value in it, but you certainly can if that's how you want to go. Now the fork doesn't have any rebound damping. So if you lift the front tire off the ground, you will hear an audible clunk as the fork tops out. Generally riding around, you don't notice it, but if you're going off curbs, going off jumps, which this bike really isn't made for, or just trying to lift your front tire up over an obstacle, you're going to notice that clunk. Now, as far as I can tell, there's no way to adjust the rear suspension. You can't make it softer or firmer, it just is what it is. Fortunately, it felt pretty good and seemed about right, but it would have been nice if there was a way to dial that in and get that comfort level perfect. With full suspension, the big tires, and the by far biggest saddle I've ever seen come stock on a bike, this thing is a comfortable cruiser. Sit back, pedal or use the throttle and just cruise. That's what it's made for. PuckiPuppy calls this an off-road bike, and it's certainly capable of that. With the big tires and the suspension, it can handle quite a bit. But it's not really designed for single track. It's more comfortable on dirt roads and rail trails. Single track requires a bit more maneuvering, and it's just too big of a bike for that. Speaking of size, this is a big bike. I'm 6'2", and I barely can straddle this top tube. They say it's capable of fitting riders as short as 5'4", but I think if you're that short, you better be all leg and less torso, because that standover clearance might be a problem. Also being tall, The seat actually can't go high enough for me. It has a very short seat post. The reason it has a short seat post is the seat tube is interrupted to allow for the suspension. So there's really not a lot of room for a seat post in here. To fit me properly, I need to swap that out with a longer post. Out of the box, the bike includes the plastic fenders and this removable cargo rack. The Bulldog includes a 7-speed drivetrain using a tourney derailleur and shifter. It displays your gearing up here so you know exactly what gear you're in, and it's super easy to use and works great. Overall, the drivetrain makes it super easy for cruising down the trail and has ample gearing to reach that 28 mile/hour top assist speed. You can go faster than 28, but the pedal assist will cut out at 28 miles/hour. Speaking of speed, if you're using throttle only, it's a Class 2 bike, so it will top out at 20 miles an hour. Now there is a hack that I've seen online that allows you to use the menu system on the screen to increase that speed limit to essentially make it unbound. I've yet to try that out. This is a first look video. As I get into more testing, I'll be sure to try that out. Right now, the weather's just not quite conducive to getting this thing out and taking full advantage of it. The bike also includes an anti-corrosion chain, which I think is a really nice touch. These bikes tend to get a lot of neglect, and a chain that's not prone to rust is super handy. Unfortunately, I was shocked to discover that the chain wasn't lubed, so you're going to want to apply some lube before your first ride. Riding it dry will work, but it's really not recommended as it'll wear out your drivetrain pretty quickly. Out of the box, the bike includes some pretty cheap plastic pedals. They work fine, but you may want to think about upgrading them at some point. So fully set up as it is, this bike weighs 95 pounds. It's not a lightweight bike. Once riding, if you're cruising down a trail, you're not going to notice and it just feels smooth and fantastic. You start riding single track, that weight's quickly noticeable, and if you're trying to maneuver the bike around the garage, yeah, I also noticed it there. The hardest part was just getting the box in from the front of the house into the shop. Now a bike this heavy needs some powerful brakes, and they included hydraulic brakes with 180mm rotors front and back. That's plenty to be able to get this thing stopped very quickly. These brakes are Logan branded. I'm not familiar with that brand at all, but they work fantastic. I had no problem stopping this bike and modulating brake feel. My first ride on this bike was in the snow, where if I locked up the brakes, it would be catastrophic. They provided perfect feel where I was able to control the brakes, stopping without any issues. PuckiPuppy also included a spare set of brake pads, which is a really nice touch. This bike can haul a fair amount of weight as well. It has a 400-pound load capacity. So that's rider weight, your clothing, plus anything else you have on the cargo rack or in a backpack, etc. 400 pounds is quite a bit. The bike also includes a headlight and a tail light, both powered from the battery itself. The tail light also acts as a brake light. You also have the gear shifter to allow you to shift between those 7 speeds with the tourney derailleur. On the left, you have the controls to turn the bike on and navigate the menus on the color LCD screen. There's also a button for a horn. This is also where you turn on those lights I mentioned. Now because of the 4-inch fat tires, you really don't need much air pressure. You can run these below 15, 10, even 5 PSI. The bike arrived with way more air pressure than I'd recommend. I lowered the air pressure to 15 PSI for my first ride, but really, I think 10 PSI is plenty. PuckiPuppy included a pump with the bike. Now that pump doesn't include a gauge, so you can't really know what pressure is in the tires. If you really want to play with tire pressure, I recommend getting a pump with a gauge, or get a separate gauge so you can really dial in the pressure precisely. Now I'm pretty anal about tire pressure, so take that with a grain of salt. You can ride this pretty much at any pressure and it'll be just fine. But those lower pressures really dial up the comfort factor and the traction. Because I was riding in snow, I really wanted to make sure I had optimal grip. I'd love to take this out on a groomed fat bike trail in the snow and see how that works. For those, you really want low pressure because otherwise you're damaging the trail. The Bulldog uses a cadence sensor to determine when and how much power to apply. As you start pedaling, it ramps up the power fairly quickly, but in a controlled way. I found it wasn't too fast or too slow, and it was fairly typical of other bikes with a cadence sensor. PuckiPuppy provided a plethora of bonus accessories. They included a cover for the bike, so I don't know if that's for hauling or if you're keeping your bike outside. Not quite sure when you'd use it, but if you want a cover, it's there. They included a bag of little bolts and pieces, including a replacement charge port. So if this charge port cover gets damaged for any reason, you have a replacement in the kit. They included every wrench you'll ever need to assemble the bike, as well as to maintain it. They included a phone mount and a bike lock, as well as a mount for that bike lock. Now they also included a bottle cage, but there's no bottle cage mounts on the bike. Now looking at the bottle cage they provided, I don't quite know what I'm supposed to do with it. I've been working on bikes for much longer than I care to admit, and I've never seen a bottle cage mount quite like what they provided. There's some U-bolts that I'm not quite sure what they want me to do with it. I'm guessing they want me to attach it to the handlebars in some way, but I really don't understand it, and that is one drawback, is I wish they had bottle cage bolts in the frame so I could attach a bottle there. Like all of PuckiPuppy's bikes, the Bulldog features a color screen. It shows you the battery level remaining, your current speed, whether you're in eco mode or power mode. And really all eco or power mode means is it's the speed you're traveling. If you're moving fairly slowly, you're in eco mode, and as your speed increases, you move into power mode. Keep that in mind when you're trying to hit that 130-mile range. Because it's way too cold outside, I haven't yet tried to do a range test on this bike. It just wouldn't be fair. E-bike batteries really don't like the cold, so I'm sure I wouldn't get anywhere near 130 miles. So I'm waiting for it to warm up a little bit, and then I'll go take it out, do some speed tests. I'll do those range tests. I'll find a nice flat area, see if I can get 130 miles out of this, and see really how I need to ride it to achieve that goal. The Bulldog features some fairly aggressive mountain bike style aluminum handlebars and some really nice ergonomic grips. There's also a short 50mm stem on the bike, giving great control and precision while riding. Overall, the riding position is a little more aggressive than some other bikes, but it's still a comfort ride. You're sitting fairly upright. It's not like a true mountain bike where you're leaning way over. Unboxing the bike and assembly was relatively straightforward. I found it a little challenging, mostly because of space in my bike shop. The bike is very big and heavy, and it was very hard for me to move around the bike to assemble it. If you have more room, it should be a breeze. The hardest part was just getting the box open. It was stapled and glued. I removed all the staples, not realizing it was also glued, and it took me probably 5 minutes, maybe longer, to finally get the box open with that industrial strength glue. I was using tools and it was still hard. So plan ahead, make sure that you allow that extra time and energy just to get the box open. But once it's open, I found it pretty straightforward. Now, you're not gonna wanna lift this bike up out of the box unless you have a group of friends with you, because it will destroy your back. I found it easiest just to cut the box open and then work on the bike, building it up in the box itself. Because my first ride on this bike was in the snow, I really didn't know what to expect. I was concerned about traction. That proved to not be a problem. I was concerned about riding on the road on compact snow and ice, and still no problem. Using the throttle or pedal assist, in any pedal assist mode, I never once had a problem where the back tire started spinning out. And braking on the snow was excellent as well. This just motored through deep snow and compact snow and ice without any problems. Now, I didn't test the top speed limit because the bike went way faster than I wanted to go on the snow and ice. So I'll be following up in nicer weather to test out the top speed, test out acceleration, things like that. But for now, I'm really impressed with how well this bike rode and how well it handled one of the more challenging terrains you could offer a bike: snow.